Imagine being stranded on a deserted island, completely alone, until you find a dead body that can fart its way to freedom. Sounds bizarre, right? Well, that's exactly what happens in Swiss Army Man, a film that blends absurdity with deep emotional moments. But this isn't just a weird comedy. It's a strange, heartfelt journey about loneliness, connection, and finding yourself in the most unexpected places. If you're curious to know how it all unfolds, make sure to subscribe and keep watching, because you won't want to miss this wild ride. Hank Thompson is a guy marooned on an island in the Pacific. He sent dozens of SOS messages in bottles and makeshift boats crafted from trash, but nothing's worked. One day, worn down by hunger and loneliness, he decides to end it all by hanging himself while humming a tune his mom taught him about not overthinking things. Just as he's about to jump, he spots a body washing up on the beach and goes to check if it's alive. But in the process, he accidentally ends up hanging himself and struggles frantically with the rope until it snaps. Hank rushes to the body and checks for vital signs, even trying chest compressions. But the only reaction he gets is gas being expelled, a lovely side effect of decomposition. Feeling defeated, Hank confesses to the body that when he put the rope around his neck, he was hoping his life would flash before his eyes and reveal some deeper meaning. Instead, all he saw was this rotting corpse that keeps breaking wind while he talks. Hank grabs the body's belt to try hanging himself again, but gets distracted when the waves start carrying the body away. The gas propels it around on the water like a motor. Struck by inspiration, Hank dashes over, loops the rope around the body's neck, and hops on top to ride it across the sea like a jet ski. Eventually, the speed sends him tumbling to the ocean floor. He blacks out, only to wake up hours later on a mainland shore. Finding a sealed bag of cheese puffs gives him hope of finding civilization. So he pulls out his cell phone and turns it on, but there's no signal. He switches it back off to preserve the little battery left. It's time to venture into the forest and look for help, but he feels guilty about abandoning the body after it helped him. So Hank starts dragging it along, putting up with the constant farting sounds. As they push deeper into the woods, Hank spots trash left by humans, a good sign they're headed in the right direction. He picks up a jacket and a sports magazine and uses a cork he finds to plug up the body's rear end to stop the gas. When night falls and rain begins pouring down, they take shelter in a cave. Hank only leaves occasionally to drink from a plastic cup he's placed outside to collect water. Unable to sleep and still unable to remember his mom's song lyrics, he makes up his own. Eventually, he dozes off, not noticing rainwater trickling into the body's mouth all night long. In the morning, he spots a raccoon sniffing around the body and tries to catch it for food, but the critter scurries away. Growing frustrated at making zero progress finding help, he's about to ditch the body when he notices water coming out of its mouth. He fills his cup and forces himself to drink it, trying to ignore the disgusting taste. When he needs more, he just has to press on the body's chest. After the body expels lots of water, it starts making noises with its mouth. Inspired, Hank decides to name it Manny. He moves Manny's mouth and presses his chest, trying to make him talk, but only mumbling comes out, and Hank gives up. That is, until Manny suddenly starts talking on his own, using actual words and even singing the made-up lyrics. Hank freaks out and punches him before bolting, only to return clutching a large stick for protection. Manny still can't move, only his mouth works, so Hank isn't really in danger. He can't decide if this is a miracle or just his brain hallucinating from hunger, but he's thrilled to have company, even if Manny has no memory of his past life and doesn't grasp basic concepts like home or life. After trying to jog Manny's memory with cheese puff dust and failing, Hank uses the trash scattered around to teach him about human society, even crafting toys from it. Manny's childlike and unfiltered take on complex ideas makes Hank question what he considers proper behavior. It also leads Hank to admit he got lost after running away from home. Manny concludes that Hank wants to find love, but ran away because nobody loved him, which he finds totally contradictory. They leave the cave so Hank can try to get a signal on his phone again. While wandering through the forest, he finds some berries, which he scarfs down only to throw them up minutes later. While Hank's busy being sick, Manny fixates on pictures of women in bikinis in the sports magazine, but doesn't understand the appeal. So Hank spins a romantic backstory for one of the women on the page. Hearing this story gets Manny's heart beating again and causes him to get an erection that moves on its own. It vanishes when Hank takes the magazine away and pops back when he returns it. But most importantly, when Hank moves Manny around, his crotch still points in the same direction, making it a bizarre but effective compass. The pair hit the road again, powering Manny's compass with the magazine to navigate through the forest. After a couple of hours, it stops working, so Hank shares more intimate details about human relationships. He admits he hasn't touched himself since childhood when his father caught him in the act. His dad scared him by saying self-stimulation shortens your lifespan, and his mother made an inappropriate joke about it. This traumatized Hank, who now can't touch himself without thinking about his mom, though honestly, he doesn't even try. Later, while exploring the forest, Hank slips on a pile of animal dung. The fall causes the phone in his pocket to turn on. At the same time, he hears growling from the trees, and judging by the size of the droppings, something big and dangerous is lurking nearby. When he hears it coming closer, he tries to drag Manny away, but they end up tumbling down a hill. Hank's phone falls out, and Manny catches sight of a lock screen, a picture of a beautiful woman on a bus. This instantly reactivates his compass. Hank quickly grabs the phone and turns it off to save battery before trying to climb back up or at least find food. But Manny keeps asking to see the picture again, claiming the phone might be his. He suggests that seeing this woman could help bring his memories back, which might help them find civilization. Hank agrees and, using bits of trash and leaves, dresses up as the woman in the photo. He's nervous at first, but Manny thinks he looks beautiful in costume. And just seeing Hank like that improves Manny's speech. Encouraged, Hank goes all out, building a fake bus from forest materials and teaching Manny how to chat up women. He describes how amazing this girl was and how he'd love to spend his life with her, his own genuine feelings that he's projecting onto Manny. Hank never worked up the courage to talk to her. He only snapped a picture. He doesn't want Manny to make the same mistake. The plan starts working, and Manny remembers. The girl's name is Sarah Johnson, giving Hank hope. He continues building elaborate sets to teach Manny about dating, movies, and parties, always dressed as Sarah. These fake dates bring them closer, and they even start holding hands. One evening, Manny chokes on some food, and while performing the Heimlich maneuver, Hank discovers another of Manny's weird abilities, shooting objects from his mouth with incredible force. Hank crafts a hook and launches it with a rope using Manny's mouth, finally allowing them to climb back up into the forest. The pair continues exploring, only stopping at night to build more sets for their pretend dates. Hank finds other uses for Manny's abilities. His mouth shooting becomes a weapon for hunting animals for food, a way to create a makeshift shower, and his stiff limbs are perfect for chopping wood. One night, they find a bottle of vodka in the trash, throw a little party, and get drunk. Manny tells Sarah that she's the one and he wants to make her happy. During a tender moment, they almost kiss, but Hank breaks it off before things get awkward. Eventually, they reach a cliff with a river below. The only way across is a set of pipelines that could serve as a bridge. It looks dangerous, so Hank double-checks it's the right path by reactivating Manny's compass with Sarah's picture. Confirming it's their only option, Hank straps Manny to his back and starts crawling across. Already on edge, Hank's mood sours further because Manny won't stop chattering about how weird things have been between them since their almost kiss. Hank doesn't want to discuss it. Suddenly, part of the pipeline breaks, and they slip, barely hanging on because their clothes catch on a metal piece. Manny realizes he's feeling fear for the first time. If he died, he'd really miss Hank. At that moment, the metal breaks, and they plunge into the river. Hank can swim, but Manny starts sinking. Hank dives after him and, remembering their pretend dates, kisses him underwater, making Manny smile. To escape the river, Hank pulls out the cork from Manny's rear and lets the gas propel them upward. They land on the shore, and Hank uses Manny's mouth-shooting ability to launch the hook back to the pipelines. They manage to cross safely to the other side. When night falls, Hank starts a fire using Manny's gas. While sitting around the campfire, Hank reveals that his mom is dead and he hasn't spoken to his father in years. So he doubts anyone's worried about him. Manny thinks not expressing feelings is stupid and declares that when he meets Sarah, he'll share all his feelings and even show her his gas powers. Hank explains that people don't fart in front of others, which makes Manny understand why Hank never does it around him. To Manny, society sounds like a stuffy place that doesn't let people have fun. He suggests they could just stay in the forest together, having their fate dates. Hank likes the idea, but steps away to relieve himself first. When Hank turns on his phone, he discovers he finally has a signal. He checks social media and reveals he's been stalking Sarah, who actually has a husband named Preston and a daughter named Chrissy. Feeling guilty, Hank confesses to Manny that the phone is his and that Sarah was just a woman he saw on the bus every day, fell for, but never had the guts to speak to. Before they can discuss this further, Manny warns Hank about a bear nearby. Hank drops the phone and positions Manny to use his mouth-shooting ability. But when Manny sees the picture of Sarah with her family, he loses all hope, and his powers stop working. The bear attacks, injuring Hank's leg as he drags himself and Manny away. Since the animal isn't scared by the burning branch Hank waves at it, he instead holds it against Manny's rear end, causing a gas explosion that sends them flying up into a tree. From this height, they can see a road with cars passing by, which thrills Hank but not Manny. Manny starts crying and philosophizing about having thoughts they shouldn't have to hide, wishing he were truly dead. Hank's mind floods with unwanted memories that he blames Manny for triggering. Shaken by these thoughts, Hank slips from the tree, landing hard and further injuring his leg. The bear bites his leg and starts dragging him away. Thinking he's about to die, Hank tells Manny that one day their bodies will decompose together, and there's beauty in that. This inspires Manny to finally move on his own. He falls from the tree and releases gas onto their campfire, creating a massive flame that scares off the bear. After thanking Manny for saving his life, Hank passes out. He wakes the next morning to find Manny dragging him towards civilization, specifically into Sarah's backyard. Manny wants Hank to tell Sarah everything he taught him. Terrified, Hank tries to escape, but Manny won't let him go. They start wrestling on the grass, which is how Sarah's daughter Chrissy finds them. She thinks they're weird and peppers them with uncomfortable questions. Manny explains they were lost in the woods and need help. Trying to impress the girl, he shows off some of his abilities, but this only frightens her, making her cry. Sarah hears her daughter and rushes outside. Finding two strange men, she assumes they're dangerous, but Chrissy explains they need help. Sarah goes back inside to call 911. After she leaves, Manny admits he didn't like how they looked at him and realizes he can't continue living like this. He's just a corpse. After making Hank promise never to tell Sarah about his feelings, Manny dies again. The police and an ambulance arrive a couple of hours later. While paramedics attend to Hank, officers examine Manny's body and conclude Hank didn't kill him. His wounds suggest he was someone who jumped off a bridge. They mistake the phone for belonging to Manny. So when they call Hank's father, they tell him his son is dead and ask him to identify the body. When his dad arrives, Hank hides to avoid talking to him, but is shocked to see how distraught his father is, unable even to look at the body. Meanwhile, officers show Sarah the unsettling photos of her on the phone. A news reporter arrives and tries to interview Hank, who freaks out, clarifies the mixed identities, and announces he's alive thanks to Manny. After apologizing to a disgusted Sarah for the photos, he grabs Manny's body and flees, ignoring his father's warnings. Not wanting Manny to end up in a morgue and an unmarked grave, Hank takes him back to the forest and sits him on his lap so they can slide down the hill together until they splash into the river. As Hank swims away with Manny, Sarah's family, Hank's dad, and the police follow, discovering all the elaborate sets Hank built. Sarah notices he even recreated the notebook she was using in the photo. Hank reaches the beach and talks to Manny, telling him how important he is and begging him to wake up. When Manny doesn't respond, the police move in to arrest Hank, who decides to break wind in front of everyone as a final tribute to his friend. Before they can take him away, Manny's body starts shaking and expelling gas again. The astonished officers allow Hank to say a proper goodbye before the waves carry the now smiling body out to sea. The movie ends here. Thanks for watching.